Lord, we love you tonight, Jesus. Lord, we thank you for just letting us be here. Holy Spirit, we ask you just to fill us, Lord, fill our lives, Lord. Pray that just your anointing, Father, be upon us. Lord, thank you for just everything that's going on here tonight, God. Lord, let it be for the glory of your kingdom, Father, that someone might take a word from what we speak tonight. And, Lord, it just touch their hearts and bring them to you, Lord. God, we honor you. And, Lord, we just bless you. It's in Jesus' name. Amen.
All right. Today is a very special episode of our Community Spotlight because we have the pastors of my home church, One Church, in the house today.
Woo!
And filling in for me on the soundboard is Blake. Woo!
Yeah.
All right. So let's do quick introductions for those who don't know us. Pastor Gene.
I'm Gene Fields, and I am pastor at One Church.
Andy Hagan, I'm the worship pastor at One Church.
I'm Joey Bridgers, and I am the recovery pastor at One Church.
Okay. All right. So kind of what we want to do here is sit down and tell the story of how our church was formed, where it came from, where we're at, and hopefully whoever's watching will be able to listen and say, hey, I want that to be my home too. So honestly, let's just start, Gene. Let's talk about kind of where you and Andy met way back in 2020.
I guess it does go back to 2020.
Yes.
Actually, it goes back to 2019 before I met Andy. I'd been at a church in Douglasville for, at that point, almost 10 years, and our worship pastor was being transferred to Kansas City. And I knew that was kind of going, and he thought that he could kind of work out a deal for being in Atlanta during the weekends and kind of back and forth. So we were trying to work through that. Roll around to January, late January of 2020. Andy played at a recovery event at our church, and that was the first time that we officially met. And we were baptizing that night.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I introduced myself as the janitor.
He did.
But Andy thought I was the janitor. And so anyway, it took him a while to figure out that I really was the janitor. So, but they played that night.
Yeah.
And it was just it was a good night. It's a good night for our recovery. And but at that point, I thought that was a one and done. That was a good night. And fast forward another month or so, and my worship pastor couldn't work it out. He got transferred to Kansas City. And I can remember sitting in my office thinking about Easter. And, Easter's coming, and, what are we going to do moving forward? It was also at that time we were just starting to hear about COVID. And so it was a lot of weird stuff in the, going on in our country, our world.
Sure.
And then in my office, there's some weird stuff going on. I called a buddy of mine and told him that our worship pastor was leaving. And I said, I was specifically calling about a buddy of his. And so if he knew that could come and help us. And he said, I'll talk to him. So he called him, and he said he can't. He just started a new church. He said, but there's a guy. And he said, there's a guy named Andy Hagan. And I remembered him, but that's all I knew.
The man, the myth, and the legend.
It was, all of those. And he said, I'll never forget, he said, but you've got to call him right now. He said, I don't know what he's doing, but you better call him quickly. And I don't call anybody quickly. And I usually have to ponder and think about it for several days. But I did. I called you right after I hung up the phone. And I don't remember how all that went together, but I do know that we agreed to have lunch.
Yeah.
And I think you said no on the phone.
I did.
But then I said, I'll buy you lunch. And you said, okay.
I'm like, yeah, sure, it's a free lunch. Why not?
Yeah. So a week later, or was it that week?
The next week.
The next week, we met and had lunch. And, meeting somebody new, there's always that awkwardness, that kind of
Sure.
dance there. But it was like we knew each other, forever.
Yeah.
I mean, it literally just clicked.
Mm.
And I felt at that point that, whether it worked out in any kind of ministry thing, I said, this guy's going to be my friend. That I felt that would be something that this guy's going to be in my life. And who knew?
Yeah, the funny thing about that story is I had been at my church 14 years.
Mm-hmm.
And in February, my wife and I made the decision to leave our church that we had been at for 14 years. And the very first church we visited after that was my friend Jeremy Holcomb's church here in Tallapoosa. And that's where I met the guy that Gene called. So the very first Sunday, he's like, "What are you doing here?" I'm like, "Well, we're looking for a church." And he's like, "Hey, you're welcome here." And I'm like, "I know I am." But that's what led to the call there. And,
if you hadn't have gone to that church,
if I hadn't went there that Sunday morning,
that connection would have probably never
no,
been
he would
made.
not have known that I was available.
Yeah.
And it's a God thing,
I don't think I knew it was Jeremy's church that you went to when that
Yeah,
happened.
Jeremy Holcomb, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Very cool.
But it just, and I don't know how we'll tell this story through this podcast, but every one church story has something like that, where there's, just this, you happen to be in the right place at the right time, or decades ago something happened and it, transpired. You see God's activity, and all of that.
And it's kind of been the ongoing thing we've been talking about lately. When he first called, he says, "I'm in Douglasville." Well, I'm in Buchanan. I'm like, that's a 45, 50-minute drive. And I'm like, I really don't want to drive 50 minutes to get to church on Sundays. And so I told him I was not interested originally. And he's like, "Well, just meet with me and have lunch." And I'm like, "You know what? Let's have lunch." I said, "I'm never going to deny God an opportunity to move in your life and speak to you." And when we had lunch that day, it's like Gene said, it was just, it was really easy to talk to him. And I felt that his desire to serve God was the same as mine. And when I left, I spoke to my wife on the phone, and I said, "Man, this is a really, really nice man." And at that point, she was kind of telling me her story about she had ran into a friend of mine that was telling her at the same time we're having lunch about his new church, and it's a long drive. But he was talking about, what, when God's in it, the drive does not matter. And she called me. She's like, "I think we're supposed to go there." And I said, "Well, let's pray about it this weekend." And I think I called you like on maybe Sunday evening or something.
Yeah,
I'm like,
it was that Sunday.
I'm like, "I'll be there." And we met that Tuesday evening. I think you guys had a church staff meeting, and I showed up for it.
Yep. I still have the notes from that staff meeting. And
That's
at the
pretty
top
cool.
of it, it says, "Introduce Andy Hagan."
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was exciting for me. It was exciting because, there was probably 10 people there, and everybody was excited about me being there.
Yeah.
And I said, I knew at that point God was moving. I didn't know what he was doing at that point, but I knew God was in it, and I could sense the excitement. Before we even got to Sunday, though, that's when the pandemic hit. And
they shut the world down.
Yeah.
And so we never got to officially kind of
no.
And but then I think that first Sunday I did just a devotional from my house, and then the next week we learned how to do Facebook Live, and we did a cell phone on a tripod. And it was I would love to have some of those original.
Yeah,
that would be.
I'm having flashbacks from early Dallas days on the iPhone with the tripod.
Yeah,
high quality days.
Yeah, woo.
Yeah, high quality days.
But that was honestly, the whole world was going crazy, but those were some of the best times.
Some of the best times, absolutely. And it was fresh. It was exciting. It was new. Again, like I said, we didn't know what God's plan was in that, but that was the beginning phase of one church starting.
Of everything.
Of everything.
I
the
think
church was a kind of choir driven church, and obviously with, COVID, all of that got shut down. And so Andy, I think right off the bat said, "Hey, can I bring my guys? Can I bring the band?" And it was like, obviously, yeah, but it was so seamless.
Yeah.
Because, y'all been doing this for 20 years.
Yeah.
And, it just, worship was just, it was the best. We really, for 7 months, 8 months, however long we did, just, kind of us, it was powerful.
Yeah. I think what we were, that kicked off in March, maybe 1st of April.
Yeah.
And I think we ended up back live in church mid-June or something like that.
Yeah. And then we would shut down again, and then we'd come back and, doing all that crazy 6 foot and all that stuff.
The drive to church was really good though during that time.
No traffic.
I-20, I would leave at 8 a.m. and there would be no one on the road.
Yeah.
I'm like, hey, this is an easy drive.
Yeah.
I think I turned that 50 minutes into like 30. So I was like, this is not too bad.
You know what I think is kind of funny? You guys were talking about how excited you were during that time. And for the record, I actually wasn't in the picture at this point. I actually was probably in a bad point. I was at a point where I was helping lead worship at a place, but I was not really invested in it. And I was kind of in a place to where at some point I thought, I don't even know if I want to be a part of leading worship anymore. And I wasn't in a place that was happy for me at that time. And it wasn't the place, it was where I was at in my walk. And then as we'll get ahead a little bit. But when you guys were saying that, I was like, man, at that time, that was a rough season for me. So the light at the end of the tunnel is about to come through.
Yeah.
But man, yeah, it was an interesting time for me in my walk.
Yeah, I had actually, once church had started back and we were back live,
Yeah.
I needed a bass player.
Yeah.
And Jeremiah, he had played with me probably 8 years prior to that.
Yeah, we had a short stint, I think 2014.
And we really had not talked in 8 years.
I did accidentally call him one time because the guy at my work was, his name's Andy. And I accidentally called Andy and I was like, "Oh, hey man, we haven't talked in forever. How you been?" But other than that, we hadn't talked at all.
I'm telling you,
this is a God moment right here.
I couldn't get you off my mind though. I'm going to call Jeremiah and see if he wants to come play.
Yeah.
And I called. I think I sent you a message on Facebook.
So at this time, it was one of the times where I was like, I'm off social media. I quit. I had not looked at social media for months. And Andy sent me a message, and it had sat there for a little while, and I did not read it.
I thought he was ghosting me. I thought he doesn't want to
Yeah,
talk
no,
to
I
me.
mean, like I had just been off social media, like for good. And then the first time I got back on, the first thing I opened up was a message from Andy. "Hey man, you want to play bass?" And I was like, "Really? What? At a place in Douglasville? What?
Yeah.
What is going on?"
Yeah.
And that's where it
This
started.
makes no sense.
Yeah. Well, it didn't. It was crazy times in the world, but
But that was God meeting you exactly where you were at, because
100%.
you were at a place where you were discouraged.
Yeah.
And you didn't feel like you were fulfilling your call.
No, I wasn't. And that was on me, and that's part of my testimony too. But, yeah, it's one of my favorite parts. I'm glad I'm finally getting to tell a little bit about it because, we'll talk a little bit about it later. But we shot a video recently for our church called the OC Story, and it tells in depth more of a cinematic style than what we're talking about now. But I didn't get to tell my story because obviously I was filming it and directing it. But that I'm not going to get emotional, but that season and what happened in the next few months after I read that message put me where I am right now. 100%. Like no doubt. Like it was a hard time, but I'd had a lot of trauma, and I'm pretty sure I told Andy this, but the first time we got together and played after that out and about, we were at
Henry Swafford's church.
Yeah, Henry Swafford's church. And these guys made me get up and tell my testimony. And this will make sense in a minute, reason I'm bringing this up. I had to give my testimony, and I've never done that publicly ever. I don't pray out loud. I don't do anything. I do now, but, I had a lot of trauma, and that was what was wrong with me for a lot of years from my dad passing when I was 20. I bottled it up and hid in a bunch of different things, alcohol, whatever. And the moment, because Andy made me, like, there was no choice. you're getting up there and you're doing. I was like, oh, and it's horrible. And apparently it's on the internet somewhere, but I won't look at it. But
God bless
telling
the
my
bass player.
story,
Oh,
because
that's
we
the
talk
best.
a lot about that at Titan Media, telling your story. When I told my story that day, I literally broke every bit of trauma I had with that.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
That's awesome.
that's what I kept thinking about when we were telling our story about how we're getting spun up for all this. You know, I didn't.
No.
No, it was God bless the bass player.
That
That's
was
what
the
someone
the
said.
one comment that was
Yeah.
on the live feed
No.
that night.
Yeah.
Somebody, God bless the bass player.
He had everybody in tears.
Oh my God, it was. I don't know. I think I blacked out.
That was
But anyway,
that was a crazy night. That's a whole nother God thing. that
it
night.
is. It is 100%. And I think
Yeah.
that's why I'm excited. We're getting to sit down and talk about this. We're getting to tell those kind of part of the stories,
Yeah.
and I think that's important. It's about what we are. I mean, one church. We do life together. And I know it's like a church saying, everybody's like, oh, we do life together. We really do, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, we spend time together. We enjoy each other. You know what I mean? So, like, when we have hard times, we're together. When we have good times, we're together.
That's it.
So, that's important.
Yeah,
But,
that's what a church family does.
yeah, I didn't mean to take us off the rails there a little bit.
Yeah.
But,
Joey, what were you doing during the early 2020s?
Trying desperately to reconnect with the church family and overcome a deep depression and a 20 plus long year battle with drugs and alcohol.
You know, I forget sometimes because your story starts a year down the road with us.
Mhm.
yeah.
Mhm.
But God was pulling all this together
Mhm.
all at the same time, but we just had no idea.
Yeah.
It was, God just
Yeah.
bringing this eclectic group of people together.
Yeah, that beginning of, I guess it was sort of the beginning of COVID stuff was, I wasn't doing very well. Had nothing to do with COVID or anything. It was just
Yeah.
because it really
It's your
didn't
time.
affect me at all. I mean, I still did everything I wanted to do, and the job I had, I worked from home, so none of that stuff really mattered. So, but it was a difficult spot for me and for my family. But some things fell into place, and things got better. Definitely.
I think you and I were in a lot of the similar places at that same time when you guys were doing all that. So
Yeah.
I don't think we've ever sat down and talked about that.
No.
Because it sounds like you were going through the exact same thing I was going through at the same time.
I hope you weren't going through all that, but
There was a lot.
But if,
a
if
lot
you
of-
were, man,
lot of,
I feel for you.
Drinking a lot, functioning alcoholic type things. But yeah, it was just masking all that trauma.
It's funny that you had just left a church you'd been at for 14 years,
Yeah.
all the stuff going on here. I was having the time of my life. That was the best time for me. I
Yeah.
was spiritually, I loved it. And it was good worship for me. It was,
Yeah.
I did a lot of, it was freedom for me. I was able to worship like I had never worshiped before.
Yeah.
Because I didn't feel like I had a congregation of people watching me.
Sure.
Yeah.
And so there was some freedom. Now I'm gonna crash and burn a year from there, or on down the road. But during those early times and during that was freedom for me. I loved it.
I think it was for me too, though. I mean, when we started playing, I was sold.
Yeah.
I kept being like, "Oh, guys, we're gonna join, right? We got something special here." And obviously that changed, and that's part of the story. But yeah, I mean, I just remember, God, I remember Jason over there, me and him in the little corner, and putting our feet up on the speakers there and rocking out. Miss Jason, but that was just such good times.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's fast forward a little bit. So we're there. Things start going a little bit south. Obviously, we were kind of alluding to it, but we all left that church.
Well, but before you go too south,
Okay.
and Gene botches everything up
Oh, okay.
here in a minute.
Yeah.
He hasn't messed it up completely yet.
Okay.
Things, a piece for me that's always been just really strange
Uh-huh.
in the sort of God thing is as I was getting everything back together.
Yeah.
And I'd met a few people, and it was weird because everybody that I met that I felt connected with in the recovery process were all at the time I lived in Smyrna,
Mm-hmm.
and so everybody was west. So I felt like everything we were doing, we were coming at least to Douglasville if we weren't going further.
Okay.
And a friend of mine was involved with the worship ministry, the recovery program at the church that Gene was at, and he said, "Hey, if you're not doing anything on I believe it was a Tuesday night, and you want to go to a meeting or something, this is a good one to go to." And he told me about the guy that was actually running it with, I guess kind of the leader there, and I showed up, and it was after COVID stuff, so I mean you could still do stuff. You could do stuff again, and I show up and absolutely no one, and in kind of the buffet line for I think it was Hudson's Barbecue that night. I was standing right next to Gene, and he introduced himself, and there was another guy with Gene, a guy named Steve, and at the time I had no idea, but I meet those two guys like, "Hey man, how you going?" That kind of thing.
Is that the first time you met Steve?
Yeah. And
Wow, I didn't know
in
that.
that little over past the barbecue sauce kind of thing, I met two people that wound up being, huge pieces in my life.
Yeah.
And obviously at the time I really didn't talk to Gene much other than like, "Hey buddy." Same thing with Steve. I see Steve the next day at a men's breakfast thing, and he and I talk a little bit more there. But Steve's probably my closest friend in the recovery process, and we've done, gosh, so many crazy things to help other people. And then Gene, and a year, I don't know if it wasn't quite a year,
Yeah.
but a few months later, I show up at a little church in Buchanan, and that guy is there. And so, yeah, it was pretty crazy and that's before
I didn't
he
realize.
messed everything
I did
up.
not. Yeah, I didn't. But I didn't realize that's when you met Steve.
Yeah. First time meeting Brian, you and Steve was that night. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So, I guess we came back in. I think it was Father's Day. I really think
it was. I think it was June.
Yeah,
June.
that we started back, and we did. Where you do the 6 feet, and we actually had a choir. We did maybe a men's choir or
I think
a couple of guys.
The first service back, I
we
think
did,
so.
And they kind of sang along with you, and
Was the choir standing 6
they
feet
were.
apart?
They actually were. It was
Wow.
awesome. It was awesome.
Awesome or awkward?
Yes, all
Safety
of those.
first.
All of those. Yes.
Were they singing? Was Andy singing in a mask?
I don't know.
I
don't
was
know that-
not singing. in
Yeah,
a
I don't think
mask.
we ever did mask.
Now
on
we did
camera.
have masks being made and passed around through the church at that time.
With
Yeah.
like
So
Jesus
we were
sayings
still-
on them?
No, I had a nice Georgia Tech.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oof.
And but it was slow. It was a slow process, and of getting people back, and probably by September, October-ish, we started really kind of bringing back, some small groups. We started doing Wednesday night stuff back, and kind of focusing out, kind of planning what church was going to look like.
Mm-hmm.
But the majority of the congregation had not really come back. The older people had not come back yet. And one of the things that, there was a paradigm shift in everything that we did. When we left, we were a very traditional, church choir kind of driven, and when that's not us.
Yeah, you had a renegade worship band at church when they came back,
and everything changed.
It did.
Everything changed, and there were folks that when they came back to their church, they wanted what they were used to,
sure.
and it wasn't that, and so there was some uncomfortableness, and but it was good. And I felt, me personally, a new energy as a pastor. I was excited. I was excited what God was doing. I was excited, for the days ahead, all those things. And then I'm starting to hear some rumbling, and I was getting a feel that not everybody was as excited as I was, and but we got to kind of moving into the holidays, into that season, and all those traditional things that we had done in the holidays, choir cantatas, Christmas caroling, big choir stuff, and all those things we didn't do. And again, just another reminder of change. And most of that was forced on because you couldn't do choir rehearsal. You couldn't do, we couldn't get together to do a lot of the things, and you sure weren't going door to door singing Christmas carols. And so there was a natural kind of disconnect, but it was a lot of that disconnect was focused back on me.
Yeah.
And so it was my fault, and I had changed things, and it was, that kind of thing. And so it is as much as it was good, they were starting to get some things. Now, I do want to just kind of draw a line in the sand a little bit. That church, we were there for 10 years. It was a very special place for us. My first senior pastor. You don't put 10 years into something and not just fall in love with it. We met some beautiful people. We had salvations. We did weddings. We did funerals. I saw babies born that when I left were 10 years old. I watched kids grow up, and my kids grew up from little boys to high school and college age. And so it was a beautiful, special place. And, God used that to bring all of us together, and even to introduce you to people that changed your life.
Yeah.
And I'll put myself in that.
Well, it wasn't really you. But,
I know. I just wanted to say that. So I get it. But that's what God used. And, sometimes in the very end, when it did kind of get to a point where I had to make some decisions personally, that what some of the people in leadership and some of the people in that church, what they felt they wanted was not what I felt God wanted for me. And I just was confronted is not the right word, but I had to make a decision on where I was going to go and where I was going to go as a pastor. Now, to be honest with you, when it got to that point, that kind of crisis point, I left. And it hurt because it was something I loved so much and I'd poured into so much.
Sure.
And so I was at a point, and I did a 180, and I said, this is not the church I want to pastor anymore. And then as I walked out the door, it hit me that that hurt of what I thought was going to be some of the best times of my life, all of a sudden were gone, because I felt y'all were gone. And I felt, all the good that I'd experienced for that year was gone. And it crushed me. And I can remember I got in my car and I called Joanne, and I said, she had no idea. I mean, this was not anything that we had talked about. It wasn't anything that we had, prepared for. I went into a meeting and I left, that meeting. And so I just said, I'm going to drive. And interestingly enough, and I was thinking about this not long ago, I just got in my car and I got on I-20 and I drove to Haralson County, turned around in the Waco exit and came back. Isn't that crazy?
That's
wow.
crazy.
And so I got off there and drove back. And in the meantime, she had called you and called some other folks and called the boys, and they came and got my office stuff out. And, our family was broken. It was hard. And I did not think about how my decision was going to affect you guys. And because y'all were as excited about what was going on as I was.
I can actually vividly remember when you called me, Andy. I had the same kind of feeling like you did. Like I was like, God, what? I don't understand. What was all this for? This is right. I know this is right. You put this on my heart that this is what my future is going to be in my church life, right?
Yeah.
This can't be it. And I remember Andy and I both said this, and I didn't know you that well then. I enjoyed you as a pastor. I think for me at that time, it was us getting to play together and stuff like that. And it was just, we started feeling like a family a little bit.
Yeah.
And I remember I said, well, wherever Gene's going, I'm going. And Andy said the same thing.
And I'm going, I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah.
I was going to go back to the electrical business.
Well, you had called me, or Joanne had called me that Saturday. I think I spoke to you that Saturday evening, and you told me that you had resigned. And I said, well, you just call me when you figure out what you're doing. I remember this. I'm like, you drugged me all the way out here to Douglasville. I'm like, I'm with you now. And that was it, because I knew that God had put us together. We talk about, 2020 and what one was doing in that. But when you go back and you really go deep into what God was doing, sometimes it was 5 and 6 years before in the making that God was connecting and intertwining our paths. Yeah. And God knows what He's doing.
God knows what He's doing.
And I've said it a lot of times. A lot of times, things end badly, or they wouldn't end. Sometimes God has to prod you and to get you to move, or other times you would just stay and stay and stay and not be in God's will. Yeah. And I believe that was one of those things there that God had to prod all of us a little bit to push us in the direction that He wanted us to go. And we're certainly reaping the benefits now of what God was wanting to do.
100% agree.
Yeah. We wouldn't be where we are as a church, or spiritually where we are, had we not gone through what we went through. Yeah. And it, we were all hurt.
Yeah.
But we also all healed, and we were all healed together.
Yeah.
And, the cool thing about it wasn't just us, that, most of the church staff, 50, 60 people came with us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so, that group of people healed together. And I think we all felt the same thing. We all we thought this was going to be here.
Yeah.
And now it's here. And what do we do? And we had no idea. No idea.
No, but I can still vividly remember that first time when we were in your living room having church, and we had 40 people, bit plus,
At least, yeah.
At least
packed
that many.
in that living room.
Yeah.
And I just remember that, like, I think it was heavy.
Yeah.
I remember how heavy it felt.
Yeah.
But we were together.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I always remember about that. You know, I don't remember what songs we played. I don't remember what the sermon was that day.
It was awesome.
But I remember, yeah, I'm sure it was awesome. But I do remember that. I just remember we were together, and I was like, this is it. You know, we're gonna push through this.
I liken it unto like it was our upper room experience.
Oh,
You know, it was
Okay.
it was Pentecost.
okay.
It was and coming out of that, that Holy Spirit just
Okay.
coming out of that.
I like that.
And what's crazy, and something that even when I go back and think about it, all that happened in a week.
Yeah.
You know,
It's true.
I mean, we literally. I went from, Sunday night, thinking I was, going to start looking for a job because I didn't want to preach anymore.
Which you did have to do.
Yeah, I did have to do that. That's a dark moment.
Yeah.
But
a little sneak peek. His vocation was that pastor, and that was his means of
Yeah.
income, and he left that day without a job, and
Yeah.
that's a step of faith right there.
Yeah.
Ooh,
And I realized that how long it took me to run through all my money, 3 months. That was it. I had 3 months worth, and at the end of 3 months, I was like, I need to get a job. And but yeah, we pulled all that together in a week.
Yeah.
And I always like to say it because there is in the church world there is a process to start a church.
Yeah.
And it's a 3-year process typically. I mean, you're going through, surveys and trying to get commitments and denominational stuff and all this, and it takes a long time to truly do it right by man's, processes. But if God's in it,
Yeah.
I think it takes about 7 days. And
That's a good number.
yeah, and so we literally went from nothing
yeah.
to the core group of one church.
Yeah.
And we were just waiting on Joey to show up. And it just from that I can remember the last thing I said is, well, I think we have a church.
Yeah.
And then we had to figure out how to get out of my living room and go have a church somewhere.
Yeah. So out of the OC story, one of my favorite lines was talking about you were talking with Andy, and it says, and I had a friend, and he always said, if I have a church, if you ever need it,
Yeah.
it's yours.
No, that's true.
And I think that's a good segue there to talk about our time at Saturday nights in Dallas.
Yeah, I did. Pastor Wayman Landman, the Landman family had always been so good to me and the guys in Builders None. I mean, honestly, when we first come together, they were having us to come play when we weren't playing anywhere, and they become great, great friends to me and the guys in the band. And Wayman had eventually taken over the church there at Crossroads in New Georgia, and we did a lot of events there. And Wayman was like, "Hey, the key's right here." I mean, like he really meant it. Like, the key is right here. Anytime you need this facility, you use it. He said, "It's yours." And when we met, I think we were in your dining room.
Yeah, yeah.
And we were just trying to figure out what kind of where the location, what would we do. We were talking about renting a space in Douglasville there, and I'm like, "Hey, I've got a buddy, and he always says, anytime you need my facility, you just use it." So I'm like, "Let me call Wayman," and I asked him, I'm like, "Could we do Saturday night services there?" "Absolutely. I won't charge you anything. You guys come use the facility like it's your own." And that was the beginnings of One Church.
Yep.
Saturday Night Live.
Yep. I can remember we went and looked at it, and just walking in, I don't know. It was like the first time we walked out here at our home church
Yeah.
here, and it just felt right.
Well, the thing about it is, they had a really nice facility there, and you're thinking about a startup church. I mean, a lot of times you're thinking, we're going to be in a rundown storefront over here
Yeah.
that's going to seat 30 people, and that's how we're going to have to do church for 3 years till we can raise enough money to get into a little bit better facility. And then we step right into a nice facility, heated, cooled.
Joanne and I, during that
Yeah.
week before we went out to Dallas and looked at it, we were driving around, and we went to 4 or 5 different kind of storefront type places. We went to a couple of event places.
Mm-hmm.
We went to the local park there in Douglasville, and everybody was going to, but it was going to be like $1,500
Yeah.
a month, and to rent space, and it was all tight. It was, you'd set up and take down, set up and take down, and while we were kind of looking through that, Andy's talking to Wayman, and so when we went, everything I'd looked at was cost too much because we had no money, and it was set up, take down, and it wasn't a church.
Yeah.
And so being able to go to Crossroads into a church was huge.
Yeah.
And then Saturday nights,
it was easy for us too because, we didn't have to break down every week. We didn't have to set back up every week. We were able to just leave our equipment there, and we worked around each other. They worked around us on Sundays.
Yeah.
We worked around their stuff on Saturday nights. It made it really easy for us.
And a lot of our friends who were at other churches, they came on Saturday nights.
That's exactly
And that was
right.
kind of a cool thing.
That's true. I hadn't thought about that in a while. Yeah.
Yeah, when we started, the church was full on Saturday nights, and it was because of that. A lot of our friends that had church on Sundays, they would come visit us on Saturday nights, and a lot of people did that for most of the time we were there.
When we went there the other day to film, it was sort of surreal. Like, it's hard to explain, but like we walked in and it was just, it was a moment.
Yeah.
It was calming, but I don't know. It's kind of hard to explain. Like, I just walked in and I was just like, man, this was, such a good time
walking in. But as soon as I stood at the pulpit and turned and faced, I just got chills.
Yeah.
It hit me hard. It was a cool experience in that. We ordained Andy there.
I was ordained there. Yeah, absolutely. Special night.
Yeah. And it's funny, a lot of folks that came that night just for your ordination have become special to one church and special to us that we met that night.
That's it. My mom and dad were there that night. That was a special night. Yeah, I had a lot of my friends showed up. Yeah. So it was good. It was really good. Alice, we were there 9 months.
Yeah.
And that's not a long time to be somewhere before you have your own facility. But as you guys listening, I live in Buchanan. So
here's the flip of the story.
Yeah. So originally, I was driving to Douglasville. So we had a lot of church members that lived out in Douglasville and the Villarica area. And that's we were trying to get central into that area. So my side, their side, everybody kind of could come centrally together in the Villarica area. And we looked at facilities everywhere. And some of them were $1 million.
Yeah.
And again, and we were blessed. Our church has been so blessed financially. We started a building fund while we were there that 9 months, and God blessed that. But we didn't have $1 million. And no bank is going to loan us $1 million with our credentials there.
They just don't do that.
They don't do that.
A church has to be established for a long time before they'll do that.
But me living in Buchanan and my wife, she was driving right by the old First Baptist facility there in Buchanan time and time again. And one day she just kind of looked up and she thought, what about Buchanan? And I was thinking, oh my gosh, nobody's going to want to come to Buchanan. But so I mentioned it to Gene and he's like, well, let's go look at it. And I called Pastor Allen and told him we wanted to look at the facility. And his first response was, Andy, we would love for you guys to have this church. he said, we're not there anymore, but we would love the legacy of God to be in that facility. And he's like, you guys come look at it. And I think the day that we looked at it, we knew.
Yeah. You know, it had sat for a while.
Yeah.
And through COVID, they were building new facilities.
Yeah.
And so, you know, it needed some tender love and care. It needed some love. But we kept walking around and going, you know, this is a church.
Yeah.
It's a pretty church. And but you know, I was like we'd look at it, you know, Andy, this is a church.
This is a church.
You know, we're not in a storefront. We're not in a warehouse. We're not in a, and I think when we left that day, that, you know, you just felt it just was right, and Pastor Allen and First Baptist Church, they were just a blessing.
Wow. Yes, they were.
You know,
they definitely were.
They just, you know, they made it very favorable to us.
Mm-hmm.
Made it where, you know, we could afford it, and they did not have to do that.
No.
And, you know, they literally changed the progression of who One Church is. And, you know, had they not done that, they would have slowed our pace, and because we would have been hindered by a mortgage,
Sure.
and we'd have been hindered financially. But because they were so gracious to us, it allowed us to grow and to maintain growth where we're, you know, in those early years.
Yeah.
And so I will always be eternally grateful.
They
to
were.
them.
They were so gracious to us, and it was such a blessing to be able to just step right into a facility. And it's like Gene said, this is a church. You know, it's not a heating and air company that we're trying to renovate, which that was a possibility.
We looked at one. We did look at one, yes.
And an old house too, right?
Old
Old Post
house.
Road.
That's right. Yeah.
That was scary.
Yes, it was. But we were able to move right in, and that was in October of, what was that?
21?
21. October of 21 we moved in, yeah.
Yep.
And now, like I said, the facility needed a lot of work. I mean, it wasn't terrible. It was just kind of dated, a little rundown, because they had been out of the church now for, the First Baptist had been moved over to their new facility for a year plus.
Yeah.
And, you know, there just wasn't anyone there in the church. And, you know, anytime you leave a building or a home vacant for a while, it'll get run down quickly. So, but the cool thing about that was, man, we had a great account set up already with a big budget to come in. We did a lot of renovation in there, hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
And we were able to pay all of that out of our account. We didn't have to borrow any extra money other than our loan for the church itself, but we didn't have to borrow any money. And we were able to, we renovated literally.
We touched every wall
of that church.
I love going back and looking at those pictures.
Yeah.
Like I still go through them, like back in the albums and stuff we have.
Yeah.
Man, you just take for granted the way it is now.
Yeah.
It's just how it is. You know, it's home. We've done all the renovation. It looks great.
Forget about the red carpet, the pink walls,
the choir loft with those across the stage where we lead worship every week.
Yeah.
And then I loved when we had like the back wall was all sanded for a while and there's no TVs or anything. Yeah.
Well,
it's good stuff.
The story for that again is the plan was, obviously we were excited about being in our own church. And so we rushed right out of the door there at Crossroads to get to Buchanan. And our plan was, hey, we'll renovate the sanctuary upstairs and then we'll just meet in the basement. We'll do church in the basement on Sundays and Thursdays till we can get the upstairs renovated. And our very first Sunday, we ran our fellowship hall completely over. There was not enough room.
People were down literally standing in the hallways. They were kind of sitting on the stairs going upstairs. I mean, it was scary for the fact that, you know, everything that we had planned.
Yeah.
Guess what? That was out the window.
Yeah. So we ended up upstairs in the main sanctuary the following week.
Yeah.
In the middle of
scaffolding,
Demolition. So
Yes.
you know that story early on about we were so fortunate that we didn't have to take equipment up and down.
was
We
about
had to
to
take
say.
equipment up and down
Oh, yeah.
because
Yeah.
I mean
Oh, I'd forgotten.
Cover
I
it
can't
for
tell
all the
you I
sheetrock,
can't tell you all
you
the
know.
sheetrock dust
Oof.
that we wiped off of equipment and pews and trim week after week after week. So when we finally finished the upstairs, that was a true blessing.
All right. So we're doing construction. We're starting a recovery program now. My main man Joey over here starts to show up on the scene. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that? How'd you end up here in the West Georgia area and part of the OC crew?
Well, while these guys were doing their Dallas thing, my wife and I were getting more and more involved in a sort of grassroots recovery network that seemed to always have us in either Carroll County or Haralson County, and I'm driving back and forth, and a friend of mine had sort of kept me in the loop on y'all's story, what happened, and how it was playing out. And while all that was going on, I was with another group of guys, which I don't know if y'all know this, but the heating and air place y'all looked at, one of the guys that I did prison ministry, his father-in-law owned that heating and air company.
wow.
Yeah.
How funny
And
is that?
And then Steve gets the place right next door.
yeah, and Steve's right
Steve's
next door. Yeah. So the guy Steve that I met over barbecue when I met Gene, he and I had gotten to be extremely close friends, and with another, I don't know, probably half dozen guys or so, we were involved in prison ministry, and we were doing quite a bit of things, and we had started several other recovery groups throughout West Georgia, and it actually gotten connected with our sound man Blake during this time, and sort of this network was sort of growing, and my wife and I were at a point where we knew we were going to move out of the Smyrna area, and we just didn't know where. We were kind of open to just about anything, and the same one of our mutual friends had sort of said, he said, "Hey, why don't you go check out this recovery group they're trying to get going on Thursday nights in Buchanan?" And I corrected him and said, "It's not Buchanan, it's got to be Buchanan," and wound up coming out to Buchanan and meeting everybody. And this
Now,
was
had you moved at that point?
oh no,
Okay, so you're still in
we
Smyrna.
still were driving back and forth, and didn't really have any plan to move out here, but we were open. I mean, it wasn't, we were looking at different places and different things, and we just weren't really sure where we would land. And I showed up on a Thursday night to help sort of, I don't know, be a part of a recovery ministry that we were just sort of putting some pieces together. And, I know, Jeremiah, I know you love hearing the story of me plunging all the toilets that night, because everything's plumbing-wise broke the day I showed up, and I'm standing, almost in ankle-deep toilet water.
Hey, for the record, I would like to say that I think we had a teenager that night that flushed about a roll of paper towels down the toilet, which was the culprit there.
I wasn't going to say why it happened.
Welcome to OC.
I'm like, if we're setting the record straight, I want to go ahead and just set it straight.
I didn't know at the time what had happened, but I was willing to plunge. And
Servant's heart.
Yeah, there you go.
That's
And,
Joey.
Yeah, I think it was I just needed to use the bathroom, and the only way to use the bathroom was to plunge.
We got
so.
we got to fix this.
Yeah. So anyway, that's kind of was my first interaction with One Church, and over the next few weeks, my wife and I came out and got more and more connected. And even at this point, we weren't sure if we were going to move out here, and we'd even talked about if we do move out here, we weren't sure if we would go to One Church as our church thing. Mm-hmm. We had been affiliated with some of the other churches in the area, and we had what seemed at that time a little more connectivity with some of those churches, and we thought that's probably where we would wind up. But we were open, and I don't know, it just seemed to fit right, and I don't think we actually ever went to any of the other churches that we thought we would. And now I guess I'm part of the team.
You're definitely part of the team. Let's talk about OC recovery for just a little bit.
All right.
You good to kick into that? Talking about,
yeah,
you're done plunging the toilets.
Yeah.
You're on Team OC.
Yeah.
The early days of starting the ministry and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, we Gene and I met for lunch one day. And
that's how all my friendships start, by the way.
And I think Gene thought he was going to get a lot of stuff out of me that day, but I couldn't shut Gene up and heard the whole story, and I left that lunch and told my wife about it, and there was just a good connection there. And one of the things that during the time when you guys were doing your Dallas thing, we were at, I bet at least a half dozen, maybe more churches, not doing church stuff, but helping with recovery stuff.
Okay.
And one of the things that used to just frustrate me to no end was being at a church that had so much potential to meet so many needs, and the pastor and the staff didn't seem to care about the recovery thing. It was, y'all could use that room, or you can use this, or you can meet there, and which I guess is kind of nice. But in order for a recovery ministry, and the key is ministry, not like a recovery meeting group or something, to really thrive, the pastor and the church has to buy in and has to be a part of what we're doing, because the whole goal of what I try to do is we meet them where they're at, and they're a mess, and we introduce them to Jesus, and the process begins. And a huge piece of that puzzle is to have a church that welcomes them.
Yeah.
And I'd seen a lot of that not happen.
Yeah.
And I hated that. It frustrated me. I don't know how many gripey sessions my poor wife had to listen to, me coming home and being like, man, this has so much potential, but, and the but was the church isn't committed to this.
Yeah.
I think they like the way it sounds until this starts showing up on Sunday.
Yeah.
And it doesn't look right and act right. And so one of the things that I saw early on with Gene and Andy was they were in.
Yeah.
Whether they meant to be or not, I don't really know, but they were, and they welcomed the folks that recovery ministry attracts, and they never seemed to. Not one time did Gene ever pull me aside and say, "Hey, before they start showing up on Sunday, they need to meet this criteria or act this way or dress this way or do any of that. And it's just always been welcome. And now on a Sunday, and I know, Andy, you see this as well as anybody, half of our church is, or maybe more now, is Thursday night people that just walked in off the street, and they don't know how to do church. They don't know church rules. They don't know church anything.
And I think that's what's made one church who one church is.
Oh yeah, that's
we don't know how to do church.
That's the
we
that's
know how
the
to
cool
love God.
thing.
Yeah.
That's the cool thing, that we have people, and now we're 5 years into this, and we have people that kind of came right off the street that are, I mean, they're in major key places within what we do, and they impact lives. And we've seen marriages saved, and we've seen, I mean, it's just crazy, the stuff that we've been able to be a part of and watch. And we've got folks that half the family wasn't a part of our family because somebody was in prison. And now those people are that has been restored, and God's fixed it. And it's really cool to see what this has become. And it's only a God thing, because most of the time I don't halfway know what I'm doing. So it has nothing to do with me. I don't think it's got anything to do with any of us.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Gene and I were talking, I don't know, it's probably been a month ago, about where we are. And we were talking about any of us could leave and one church would keep going. It's not based on us anymore.
Yeah.
We might have gotten it going, and we might have, held it up for a little bit, but now we could all just go away and it would keep going. And I think that's the cool thing about what God's done through us, is we have planted something that is going to grow and be here far after us. Yeah. And we're not, I don't think we're the keys to it anymore. No. And it doesn't matter if we show up or not.
And when just the things we do, today, the things we plan today, the things we're doing today, they're obviously going to outlive us.
Sure.
We're this church is, the foundation has been solid.
Yeah.
And this is something that will outlive all of us.
Yeah.
And that excites me.
Yeah.
I look at the kids that, are in the nursery, and those kids that are running around, that, some of those kids are going to grow up in this church and be, 30, 40, they'll have kids in that church. Mm-hmm. And that's cool.
Yeah. And I think what, to me, is so encouraging about that is when you look at those kids and you see who their moms and dads are.
Yeah.
And the fact that, heck, some of those moms and dads shouldn't even be alive.
Right.
They shouldn't still be married, and they shouldn't have their children back, and it just shouldn't.
Yeah. A lot of shouldn'ts.
Yeah. But it is, and it's continuing. And, I don't think we've done it.
Their story's going to be different.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
And we've changed generation. God is through us and through this is changing generations. And, I think some of those moms and dads could have never envisioned is going to happen because of their children growing up in an environment that's going to break. It's going to break change and curses and, all those things that you think it can't happen.
Yeah.
And we're watching it happen. Yeah. And that's really cool. Yeah. I mean, it's really cool. It's a very humbling thing just to think I had just a little bit to do with that.
Yeah.
And
well, You have
It's
lot,
crazy.
a lot more than a little bit.
Yeah.
You pour into people's lives that, that far outside the church. You're a part of, again, this family, this group of people. We come together to celebrate. We come together to worship. We come together to grow, all those things. But man, ministry, especially recovery ministry, that happens out here.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful thing when, you can see those. I look out at the congregation and it's just, I know the stories.
Yeah. Oh, it's crazy.
One of the coolest stories to me involves two of those guys, that fit in that mold of family restoration and their personal lives restored. But you go all the way back to day one of one church. Two of those guys were in the same jail cell in prison, big boy prison.
Yeah.
And they heard about us starting the church because one of them's wives was at our church. Now it just happens to be my niece, and but she was at church and she was there with bringing those kids every Saturday night at that point. But her husband Eric and his cellmate Alex, from the first night we had church, they started praying every single day for one church. And so the two guys outside of probably present company that have prayed for this church the longest were two guys that started in a jail cell together. And so every day, one church, praying. Well, one of the guys, Eric, gets out of jail. And he immediately comes back home, back into the family. Guess where he shows up that next Sunday? He's at one church. And so, he's starting that process, and you poured, a lot into him, and that's one of those families that's been restored.
Yeah.
Well, Alex, he spends another year and a half or so still in jail praying for one church. Well, unbeknownst to him, when he gets out, he randomly comes back, this is his area, Haralson County, and he has no idea that the church that he prayed for, he just randomly came to one church on a Sunday, walks in the door, and he looks across the congregation, and there's Eric. He had no idea.
Cellmate.
His old cellmate. And he goes, oh my gosh. And so they kind of meet, and Eric comes to him, and Alex says, what are you doing here? And he goes, this is the church we've been praying for all these years. And,
one of my favorite stories.
Those two guys had no idea. And now now they take up the offering I tell everybody, I'm the only church anywhere around that has two felons taking up the offering.
Hey,
I don't think it's
That's
just
us.
two of them.
Well,
I think now there are a few more of them.
Hey, you got to watch out for Ted.
That's true.
That's the one you got to watch
That's
out
true,
for.
yeah.
Mr.
Ted
Ted.
Otwell, you have to watch out for him.
Yeah.
Well, all right, Joey, tell us a little bit about Thursday nights for all those people that don't know about Thursday nights.
Well, Thursday night, it originally started, or at least the way it was sold to me, besides being a plunger of toilets, it was going to be the night that one church kind of hosted a recovery ministry.
We were not going to do a midweek
No,
service.
yeah, it was that was going to be
just
it.
because we were so coming from so many different places that I just didn't feel at the time that
Sure.
for our congregation to come to a midweek.
Yeah.
So it was.
It was just going to
Thursday
be.
night,
It was going to be.
recovery
We were
night.
going to do a meal, and we were going to do small groups, and then maybe a large group sort of, talk or something, testimony, that kind of thing. And I guess for a few weeks it was sort of like that, maybe. And somewhere along the line, Gene and I, and I don't know if Andy, if you were part of these conversations or not, I can't really remember, but it was, this needs to be more than just recovery stuff.
Yeah.
And not that that's not, I mean, that's kind of the backbone of our church, but what I mean by that is this is going to be bigger. This is going to be You know, one of the things my wife and I have always talked about is the need to have stuff for the spouses and the moms and dads and the children of the person that's battling addiction, and it not be an afterthought. It not be a place where a husband and wife come, but whichever one of them's the addict, it's all about them, and they just have some little group that they can go to. We wanted it to be the whole deal. We wanted the kids to be safe, the kids to connect, the husbands, wives, moms, dads. We wanted the whole deal. And in order for that to really work, you've got to start offering all sorts of stuff. And I don't think we even had a clue what we were going to do early on. And one of the, I think the key things in the process for me for that was early on we had a recovery, a live-in recovery group that came, and I forgot exactly what happened, but it didn't work out and they quit coming. And I realized that I was kind of catering everything that we were doing on Thursday night for that group and not the One Church people. And I realized in all of that, my feelings being hurt and all the other stuff with them leaving, and oh boy, what do we do now? I realized, and Gene and I talked about this, is the people we need to pour into is not some outside group that shows up sometimes. It's our people. And, at that time we'd gone down to probably about a dozen people.
Yeah.
And I was like, what in the world, boy, I really suck at this stuff. There's nobody here. And a lot of prayer and soul searching, and, it was like just God sort of saying to me, focus on these people. These are the ones. And that's what we started doing.
Yeah.
And everything changed. I mean, it wasn't overnight. It kind of is in my mind a little bit, but it was over a few weeks. And we went from 10 or 12 of our core people to, some nights we have 70 or 80 people on a Thursday, and we don't have room for everybody. And it's just because we decided we were going to pour into those people. And those people are us, and they are our family. And, that's what we started doing. And that was probably 3 years ago, I bet now.
And again, it's not necessarily, it is, but it's not necessarily recovery.
No,
It's just church.
It's just, it has become.
Because everybody.
Yeah, it has become something so broader. And it impacts, the whole church group, the whole body of folks. And, we have a ladies group that probably has 20 or 20. We don't have rooms big enough for a couple of our small group.
It's a good problem to have.
The guys and the men and the women. We really need probably twice the space to do some of the small group work that would be good to do, but nobody seems to complain and nobody seems to care, and they keep showing up, and we've had every reason for everybody to leave. The plumbing doesn't work, the heating air doesn't work, the lights don't work, the screens. If you were going to have an excuse on not coming, you could find one.
I think it's successful though, from the point you keep bringing up, because it's part of our church.
Yeah.
It's not an afterthought.
No, it's
not. It is the
all.
core. And I don't even know if I've told you this, but when I share about our church, I would say 90 to 95% of the time, you know what I'm talking about? Thursday nights.
Yeah.
Recovery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not because I'm talking to people in recovery. People at work, at my job.
Yeah.
Like I'll bring up, I'm like, oh, we have church on Thursdays. And they're like, oh, what's about Thursdays? I'm like, oh, let me tell you about what we do.
Yeah.
You know, and
Yeah.
I love that about our church.
Yeah.
And I think that's important too for someone who's listening that doesn't know us. You know, they're starting to hear about our story.
Yeah.
Come be part of us.
Yeah.
We don't care where you come from, how dirty you are. We're all dirty. Listen to our stories we're telling right now. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, that's
There's
what
few
we're about.
Places in the world
Yeah.
where, you know, and not me, but you know, just but where the pastor can sit down with a meal with a guy that, you know, just got out of jail, you know, or still high, or you know, whatever. And you know, where's that gonna ever happen?
Yeah.
Well, it happens at one church every Thursday night.
Exactly.
You know, and it's such a cool thing that there's been, you know, friendships formed on Thursday night that, again, people would have never, ever met. They would have never been together. And so when I stand in the pulpit and I look out on Sundays and you see people, you know, that are connected, well, they're connected because they got to experience something.
Yeah.
I think that's
very
our
unique
church
and
as a whole.
special. Yeah.
I say that all the time. Like, I have so many friends that I don't know if I would have them as my friends outside of being part of our church family. You know what I mean? Like, and it's not because we're church family. We've had the unique opportunity to get a whole bunch of different kind of people together, and we all click.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think a lot of my success stories that I've told of stuff like that is like those stories about those friendships and that part of our family.
Well, you know, the biggest thing too about being successful in any church, any recovery, is putting the main thing first, and that's Christ.
100%.
Yeah.
I mean, you can give people a lot of rules and regulations and steps, and that just doesn't resonate with most people.
Sure.
Most people want a true experience, and I think that's what happens at one church, is that we've allowed God to be God at one church.
Yeah.
We do everything we can to help facilitate and create an atmosphere for the Holy Spirit to move in people's lives, and that's ultimately what we all need.
Well said.
I mean, how many of you know people that went through the process of the steps over and over, and they fail and they fail and they fail trying to get in recovery, even in a lot of other areas of life. But when you fall in love with Jesus, that changes things.
100%.
And I think that is the core of all of our recovery, of what we do there. It's our desire to be pleasing to God, you know?
Yeah.
Yep.
And all of this happened. There's never been one meeting that we've sat down and said, all right, this is what we're going to do.
Yeah.
You know, it's just the way God has just brought it together.
Yeah.
Well, Joey, give us some details on how, if somebody wants to come check out Thursday nights for OC Recovery, what are our times and what's going on?
Yeah, we meet every Thursday night, one church right in downtown Buchanan. We'd love to have you, whoever, doesn't matter where you are in the process, just show up. And we eat dinner at, it's supposed to be 6:15, but we usually start about 6 o'clock because there's usually too many people and we have to get going. Then 6:45, in between 6:45 and 7, we split up into small groups, and we've got small groups for lots of interest and things like that. So, just come check it out. And then after that, we gather upstairs in the sanctuary. It's usually, I don't know, 7:45-ish or so, where Andy and usually Jeremiah and Youngblood's on the little the beatbox thing that he plays, and which is always a trip to me. And then we have a little small group time, and we're out of there by 8:30. We make it a point to get people out and home so kids can go home and get in bed, and folks can go home and rest and do whatever they need because they have work tomorrow. We understand all that, and we want to make sure that those things are, prioritized. And we make sure if you show up and you want to connect with somebody, we make sure it happens. And if it doesn't happen, it's on them, because we sure make sure that the opportunities
That's
are there.
Love it.
You don't leave alone.
Yeah.
If you show up alone, that's for sure.
All right.
So
Well, Andy, as we kind of start wrapping up the episode, I want to give everybody kind of a opportunity to hear about One Church's worship program. What does that look like on Sundays and Thursdays?
it's me and Gene singing.
Yeah.
Oh, that is true. Actually, I'll edit that out.
I think Gene did leave his microphone on one time.
One time, yeah.
That was
and we got
Christmas
recorded
Eve.
singing.
Christmas
Yeah.
Eve.
Yeah.
Christmas Eve.
It was a great moment.
It was
for me.
good.
No, our worship ministry, our worship band at One Church, to me, it's a great ministry. I'm thankful that I get to serve along with great people, great musicians, but more than that, people that have a heart to serve God. It's for us on Sunday mornings. You're going to come in at 11 a.m. and it's going to be high energy because we're going to praise the Lord, and then we're going to try to create that atmosphere for God to move. Not anything that we can do, but if we can come in with our hearts prepared,
100%.
and if we can sing praises to God, His Spirit is going to move.
Yeah.
And that's what you're gonna be able to come in, because so many times in church it's a sterile environment, but we want to come in and allow God to be God. We want a church that worships. So if you're uncomfortable with people singing, if you're uncomfortable with people raising their hands, and if you're uncomfortable people coming to the altar during the worship, you'll be uncomfortable, because there's no rules per se in how we operate during worship. Worship is a time for you to connect with Jesus. And if you feel the need to come to the altar during worship, man, there'll be someone there to meet you down there that'll pray with you. And there's no time like the right time. And if God's moving in your life, and that's the atmosphere that we want to create and that we want to live in there at One Church, that the Holy Spirit just has liberty to move.
I like what you said about if you don't want to raise your hands, or maybe you don't like a guitar or something like that, it may not be a good fit. But I would argue against that I can think of many people in our congregation that is not their kind of worship, and I've seen people evolve over our whole story.
That's my story.
Yeah.
That was not my worship style. I was very, and the way I was raised, I was very, you didn't raise your hands, you didn't, express yourself.
Yeah.
Now Joanne, on the other hand,
Sure.
she, that is her worship style. And we've always, worshiped, kind of in that kind of differently to a degree. But again, going back to some of those COVID days, that's where my freedom of worship came out. Now, I'm but what's cool for me is I don't ever feel like I'm being watched or judged by how I worship.
And I think that's important too for us. I mean, we've got people who raise their hands, but we have people that don't.
Who don't? Yeah.
I love that we're open to whatever kind of worship is what you're comfortable with.
Yeah.
What is true from your heart. It doesn't matter if you're raising your hands if you're still praising the same way with them down.
And like I said, in worship is not about how you express yourself. It's just about expressing yourself.
Exactly. Yep.
Somehow, some way, just acknowledging God, saying, God, I'm here and I worship you and I love you. It's not about how you do it, because there's a lot of people that do it differently.
Yeah.
And it's all good.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, Gene, give us a breakdown of what Sunday morning looks like as senior pastor.
It's a group of people, family coming together. We now live across the street.
Yeah.
And so it's a neat thing to see families get out of the car and come into church. And we're a generational church. We are high energy, but we're not necessarily a young church.
Sure.
And so we have, from the very youngest to, we have your 80s and almost 90s, coming, but to watch families. And it's neat that we have, grandchildren, moms and dads and grandparents that all come into worship. And then we have, when you look out, you have that guy that maybe just got out of jail last week.
Yeah.
And he's sitting on the same row with a guy that may be, a very successful businessman.
Sure.
Or a police officer, or, it's just God has brought a wonderful collection of people to one church.
Yeah.
And I've been in church all my life, and from day one almost, I've never experienced a church like this.
Yeah.
And I've never experienced a church that just genuinely love each other, and it's a church. There's people, and people are crazy and all those things.
Sure.
But in the midst of all the crazy and all the stuff, bottom line is we love each other.
Yeah.
And I think you coined it, that you said it years and years ago, that everybody needs to experience this church.
Yeah, 100%.
And I say that all the time, and I'm trying to be in this community as much as I can, and just I like to, part of my day, I just like to go into businesses. I like to go into the grocery store. I like to go and just talk to people. And sometimes I don't want to sound like I'm pleading with them, but I'm like, you should really try this.
Yeah.
You should really just, and we're starting to see more and more of that. Our group of our core group has remained, but it's neat to see every week. It seems like more and more of the community's coming in, and that excites me. That we get
100%.
We're starting to see that, and the impact that this church has, not just on Sundays, but the impact this church has in our community.
Yeah.
And I think that we are a big part of our community. And I told early on, and I take notes and I write a lot, and I wrote this back in the early days of kind of those first days of our church, and I wrote, will our community, and at the time I had no idea where our community was, but will our community miss us if we don't exist?
Ooh.
And
I would say so.
Now that we're here,
Yeah.
now that we have our community, I think our community would miss us.
Yeah.
And so, I think that's part of, one church, is that, we're not just, helping that individual, and we do that very well, but I think in the broader sense, we're helping our community.
Yeah.
And being a part of something that's happening out here. And, our sound guy, Blake, is a big part of some of the revival that's happening in our community. And one church is and it will continue to be a big part of this community and the revival that's happening.
100% agree.
One thing I just, I don't want this to be lost or we not say it because it's so integral, but our passion statement, and I like to say it that way, is that love God, love people. And that comes from multiple places in the Bible. But in Luke chapter 10, it's stated that, the greatest commandment is to love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, with all your strength, and your neighbor as yourself. Love God, love people. And, that's one church.
Yeah.
That's Sunday, that's Thursday, that's Monday through Friday. We're a group of people that love God and trying to figure out sometimes what that looks like, but to love God and to love people.
And I don't think that's just a catchy thing that we've kind of pulled out of Scripture.
Yeah.
I think we literally embody that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think, I would never change it.
Yeah.
But love God and like people. I think we really like each other.
Yeah.
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 And I could not imagine doing life without y'all.
Yeah. I 100% agree with that.
And it's exciting that, we get to do it, while we serve God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. And I like the fact we play golf together too. So
Yeah.
that's good too. So
Oh, we need prayer for that. All right, cool. We're going to go ahead and start wrapping this up. I highly encourage you to check out the links in the description below. It really paints a picture of what One Church is. We'll have our OC story. all of our socials and stuff like that, times of services, so you can come spend some time with us and get to know us all. We love you, and till next time, like and subscribe.